AM 1060 WMEL. The views expressed on the following program are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and are not necessarily those of WMEL staff, management, or advertisers.
This is Joe Steckler, folks, your host for Helping Seniors, the radio arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County Incorporated. The purpose of our program is to inform, educate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors to resources. But it also includes, just like I was talking to my co-conspirators here in the booth there today, John Farrell from Daily Bread and Rob Cramp from Housing for Homeless, that when you're in the nonprofit business, you've got to be a jack of all trades. And you fundraise, you friend raise, you write shows, you do radio, you do television, you beg. And these two guys do the same thing. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But before I even get into that, if you want to call our organization, and right before I came here, I got off the phone with two callers. One needed housing for a person that's going to be evicted and be a homeless person. And the other one is a person that is half the family left and took the money and left the guy with nothing. So, those are tough phone calls, folks, especially this time of the year. And having an organization like Helping Seniors, you just listen to it. As I talk to these people, you hear the relief in their voice, and notice somebody is actually listening to what they say. And as I explained to them, I said, we can try. I don't know if we can solve your problem, but we can sure try. And I've had 3 people like that, 2 today and 1 last night, say, that's all we can ask for. But that's the same thing Rob and John are going to talk about. But the sponsors for the first part of the show include Gentiva Home Health Care, the Eye Institute, Solid Bite Dental Implants, Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, radio station WMEL AM 1060, Wusthof Hospital System, Levin Home Care, Atlantic Shores, Ebony News Today, and Wendy Handy from Dale Sorensen Real Estate. The phone number to reach Kay, the information specialist, and right now you got a guy information specialist, Joe Steckler, because Kay's spending some time with her son. So I got the phone duty this week, and the phone number is 473-7770. If I'm not there, you'll get a voicemail, but you leave the message and I'll call you back. That's the same thing Kay does. 473-7770. So today the show that we're going to talk about is a show that we recorded it on TV last week, and we're going to do the same questions, and we're going to talk about it in more depth and detail today. And the title of the show is The Plight of the Hungry and the Homeless. And my panelists are Rob Cramp, who is Executive Director for Housing for Homeless, and John Farrell, who is the Director at Daily Bread. Welcome, Rob. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Just remember, just like on the presidential debates the other night, equal time. If Rob says something,
Rob,
John, you can rebut, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, what did you guys think about that? Did you watch the debates?
Yes.
Do you watch them, Rob?
Only if I have to.
Let's don't. You don't want to talk about it.
You're going to bring up a whole new subject.
I'm not going to do it. No. We're going to stick on Plight for Hungry and Homeless. Let the people wonder. And if, I'm telling you, folks, if you don't pay attention to what's on that TV and what people are talking about, what some of these candidates can do, what they can't do, and someone couldn't do if he hit them in the head with a shovel, they wouldn't even want to do it. Be careful who we elect to be the president of our country next November. We have to be careful.
The difference here, Joe, is that we talk about the facts. We talk about reality.
You mean on our show?
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. They did not. Some of those people were asked questions Monday night, Tuesday night. They never got an answer. At least people will give an answer from us today, and they'll get an expression of thought. Well, first thing, Rob, how about just telling people briefly what Housing for Homeless is? What do you do?
Yeah, Housing for Homeless is the largest homeless provider of housing for the homeless in the county, with over 300 beds. John and I were just talking. Actually, we started it together, 2 organizations back in '89 as a coalition. And we decided in the 90s that John and Daily Bread would focus on what they do, which is feeding people, and we would focus on what we do, which is housing people. And we now have 125 properties across the county where we house people, 60, 70 maybe of those families are veterans. So we make a major contribution to the veteran homeless program. And we have two programs. One where we care permanently for people who are disabled. If they're not disabled, then we get subsidized for a 2-year program. We call that transitional housing.
It's interesting. Before you take, John, one of the phone calls I got was a guy, 77 years old, disabled, needs braces on his leg. He falls. He can't stand up. He is disabled. Do you look at people like that?
Absolutely. If we have places on the only problem if we have somewhere on the second floor, but most of our properties are on the ground floor, and we can take disabled people, and we do all the time. They have to have a little bit of income, a minimum amount of income to be able to pay their utilities.
This guy has $1,206 a month.
And
That's it.
We should probably take him. Let's get together after the show, and we'll see what we can do.
But this is how we solve problems, John, Rob. We talk about them.
Absolutely.
John, how about giving a quick thing on Daily Bread?
Daily Bread started out only as a soup kitchen, but then we've reached and branched out. We turned a warehouse into a food bank. Last year we brought in 1,250,000 pounds of food. We use 20% in our soup kitchen. The other 80% is given out to 20 different partners who in turn hands the food out to needy families in grocery bags. We also have a thrift shop that helps pay our bills. And in 2012, we opened up a service and outreach center. So we're actually providing lots of services to help people get out of poverty. And the latest two areas that we're pushing on last couple of years are housing and jobs. And it's working.
And you're only doing that because you got a new building.
Well, no, the new building helped, though, because it gave us 5 different office areas where we can bring in other agencies who can take those, we call them partner rooms, for an hour a day or a part of a day, and they can help our people that come to us with whatever they do. For example, today we have Brevard Health Alliance there. They provide free medical care with their van. Other days we'll have people that help with food stamp issues. Others with jobs. Others provide haircuts or glucose testing or a wide variety of services. We have tutoring, literacy classes, computer classes. There's a wide variety of services now that help people get out of poverty. So in the old days where we only were a soup kitchen, getting people from today till tomorrow, now we're teaching people how to fish.
But you had to fight like hell to get that building.
Everybody has to fight to get what they need, right? You do.
Well, I know. Do you have to fight, Rob?
All the time.
Everything's handed to you.
All the time. Joe, homelessness is not sexy.
That's exactly right.
People are anxious to get them out of New Haven Avenue. They're anxious to get them off the streets, but they're not always willing to put their hand in their pockets and help for that. We are fortunate. 3/4 of our funding comes from the federal government, but it may not be there forever, and we should have much more private funding than we do. We have very little private funding, and it's a constant source of concern.
You hit a key word, funding, and most of it coming from the federal government. It's a very, very grave concern I have, John and Rob, is what might happen to some of the funding. You know, there was a lot said about Lyndon Johnson, and especially when he picked his dog up by the ears and dropped him out of the boat. People had a lot to say about that. But you don't hear too many people say about Lyndon Johnson and the Older American Act of 1965, which makes the majority of the help that we have for homeless people, for disabled people. If we didn't have that American Disabled Act of 1965, we wouldn't have near what we have today.
Absolutely. No. You know, and the irony is, Joe, Lyndon Johnson got all those programs through because he had 20 years in the Senate and 20 years in the House. And now people are saying, well, we don't want anybody with experience in the Senate or the House. And yes, that's how Johnson got things done.
Yeah.
Yep.
I going back to the debates the other night, what you just said, Rob, points out why people should really think. Go back to the old Roman Senate, the Curia, where the senators got up there with their white linen robes on and one arm draped through it and a handle hanging over their shoulders, and they talked back and forth, and Caesar and Gladius and all these guys took them to task. But we do the same thing today. We have to have a Senate, we have to have a House of Representatives, but somehow we've got to force the inaction. And one of the biggest things is just like we try to fight here in Brevard County to unite our organization so we can do more of everything. The same thing for the federal government. If we got the House and the Senate to work together under a president that could unite instead of dividing,
absolutely,
then we could get rid of some of the graft programs, get rid of some of the stuff we give away to people, and concentrate on feeding our people and taking care of the homeless here. When they talk about building the military, I just heard the price tag on a new F-35 Raptor aircraft. Do you know how much one aircraft is going to cost, either one of you?
I could guess, but no, I don't know.
$135 million per aircraft. Think what $135 million could do in the whole state of Florida just to reduce the 40,000-person Medicaid waiting list, people that need daily bread services, people that need housing for homeless services.
And it's over budget. You know, the overruns on the Raptor are greater than the whole UK military budget, just the overruns.
The overruns. So the P3 toilet seat that costs $400 is pretty small in comparison.
Absolutely.
Pretty good bargain.
Yeah, it was a bargain, John. Okay, let's go back to daily bread.
Good.
You're now feeding people 7 days a week.
We are.
What happens, John, to the people that you feed there at the lunchtime? Do they get a bag for a night, or how do they take care of themselves at night and at breakfast? Do you have any idea?
Well, in addition to the meal we serve, and I'll get to that in a second, in the morning we do serve coffee and donuts when we have them, and lately we have had donuts almost all the time. So if you call that breakfast, which I wouldn't, but at least it's something to put in their stomachs. We serve a 7-course meal. It's enough nourishment as well as volume to feed someone for the entire day. And it's not unusual for some of our clients to take what they have left over on their tray, put it into a bag, and take it home for the evening with them. So that's what they do. Those that might have another income, whether it be from food stamps or otherwise, might get a hamburger at night or something else to supplement what they had for a meal.
If people that have, this is a question I don't know the answer to, and one of you probably does know. If a person gets food stamps, can they go to these fast food places and use the stamps at fast food places? Can they or not?
I think so. I don't think there's anything to stop them.
No, as long as it's for food, I believe they can, yes. Yeah.
That's something. It would be an interesting thing to find that out. I'd like to know that. Okay. How many homeless people, Rob, do you think we have in Brevard County now?
Well, we count the homeless once a year, as John knows, because I was at his place counting them this year. Once a year we count them, and that came to around 1,100. But that's not absolute, Joe. That's just a point in time. What we do is we count those in order to see are there more or less than the same time last year, so we get a trend. The absolute number is probably well in excess of 2,000. We know that our homeless children are somewhere around 1,400 or 1,500, so if you attach those to families, you're talking probably close to 3,000.
How many people do you think between you and the churches and all the other organizations, let's say we've got a total of 3,000 people, how many do you think we're actually able to serve, and what is our unmet need?
Last year we served over 700 people going through our premises. But there is still a lot of chronic homelessness. These are people who have been out on the streets for over a year, or they have been homeless 4 times in 3 years. They kept bouncing backwards and forwards. Those are the people, in fact, that we're going after at the moment, because the plan is that HUD have set a goal that we will eliminate chronic homelessness by the end of 2017. Now, we're on our way with veterans. By the end of this year, in this county, we look like eliminating veteran homelessness. That doesn't mean to say you still won't see a homeless vet, but we commit that all the agencies together, John, mine, all the other agencies, say after January the 1st, no veteran will be homeless in this county for more than 30 days without a roof over his head.
How can you, John?
I've got a couple of different thoughts here. First of all, last year, during calendar year 2014, we saw 5,700 different people. 90% of them come from within 4 miles of us. So it's very hard for me to conceptualize 1,000 homeless people, or 1,100, or 1,500. Now, granted, not everybody that comes to Daily Bread is homeless. 54% are this year. Last year it was 69%. So somewhere in between is accuracy. On homeless children, Sally Shin, by the end of last year, who is the liaison for homeless children in the Brevard school system, had 1,850 kids. And 467 of those children were either in shelters or cars. So, I don't know how you define homelessness, but these are people that aren't living in any shelter whatsoever or very limited shelter. So, the numbers are not accurate in what my definition of homelessness. If you look at all types of homelessness, my guess is there are about 12,000 homeless people in the county. That does include people that are doubling up, so-called, mothers and fathers who have moved in with their kids and their kids' families, or kids and their families who have moved back in with mom and dad. That's doubling up. So there's a lot larger problem, but what's trying to be addressed is those that are homeless without any type of shelter, not only chronic but emergency, people that are new to homelessness for the first time, or people that are about to become homeless. And I would guesstimate those numbers are probably at least 5,000 people.
Rob, you agree?
I understand what John is saying. For instance, the school children, we have probably around 80 homeless children in our housing right now. And the challenge is, are those all being registered at the school? The children do not like to admit that they're homeless. It's called in transition. So Sally's estimate is the best she can do with what she's told, but it's probably higher than that because of the prejudice, if you like, that may be against the homeless children.
That's a very good point, because we too at Daily Bread only count those who come to see us, and not every homeless person or person in need in our area comes to see us. So we don't really know exactly what that number is.
We do know that's excessive, and
yes.
We do know that it's something that it needs more than 2 or 3 agencies addressing.
Absolutely.
That is a fact that you can't get away from. It's when you talk about homeless children, I know, like, Kay found 3 grandmothers this past year, I'm aware of 3 grandmothers living with their grandchildren in cars. 3. That's just what we know about. But I remember when I had the Alzheimer's program, the lady that ran our AmeriCorps program had a mother and father and 5 children that lived in a tent over in Wickham Park, and in one of the great rains we had, it flooded them out, and they had nothing left. And so we gathered them into the Alzheimer's Center over on Wickham Road, and we kicked care of them at night over there, managed to get them re-outfitted with clothing and everything. And I don't remember what Charlotte was able to do with them, but she helped solve the problem. Yes, the problem of homelessness and being hungry is exacerbated by family breakups, failure to plan for retirement.
Mental issues.
And what?
mental issues is
mental
huge.
issues. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I was telling John and Rob right before I came out to the show. I had a phone call from a person that had a client that had a family that the roughly 80-year-old single parent, was going to be evicted from where they live because of potential mental problems along with smoking. And, some of these places, they just don't allow you to smoke.
No.
If you do it, you're out. But what people don't get, Rob and John, is that when they're forced out of these places, they call agencies like Daily Bread, like Helping Seniors, or Housing for Homeless, and say, "What can you do for me?" Those people are sort of put in with the 40,000 Medicaid clients that are waiting for assistance in the state of Florida right now. So what the heck do you do with somebody that has no home, has no place to live? And I got people right now that they can't get jobs, and they're going to lose their home. They're going to lose everything they got.
Right. Yesterday afternoon, I got a call from someone. She was being discharged from the hospital with a brand new baby, and she's homeless. Her other 3 children were living with her mother in an over 55 community. The community looked the other way because of these little kids being with grandma. But once this woman is out of the hospital, she cannot go to that place because it's 55 and over only, and she's got 3 other kids. So they wanted to know, what can you do? The hospital did. So we have found a way to take care of it because of organizations working together. Brevard Cares has agreed to take these people and do something with them in 7 to 10 days. There's another agency I was able to get hold of, and they were willing to fund 10 days in a motel. So all these kids at least will have a roof over their head, and mom will be able to find out what she's going to do for her future, have some time to think about it.
Rob, we're up against the break, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. But do stay with us because we're just barely touched. And I want to get Rob to talk a little bit more about what John's talking about from the homeless side. Stay with us.
AM 1060 WMEL.
This is Joe Steckler, folks. We're back live for the second half of Helping Seniors, our radio show. Remember, the purpose of this program is to educate, inform, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors to resources. To reach Kay Kaiser, our information specialist, the phone number is 473-7770. And if Kay doesn't answer the phone, and this week I'm answering the phone, if you don't get it, you'll get a recording. One of us will call you back as soon as we can get free. Before I came here, I had 2 calls at the same time. It's impossible to take them both, so I recorded one and I talked to the other. Sponsors for the second part of the show include Senior Scene Magazine, Hometown News, Spotlight Magazine, Seniors Helping Seniors, The Fountains of Melbourne, Beth Courtney from the Brownsville Courtney Financial Advice Team, Barbara McIntyre, Home Equity Specialist. And that's something you should think about, seniors, especially if you're getting in trouble financially. Your home can be a tremendous asset if used the right way. And should be darn careful about home equity loans or reverse mortgages and accepting stupid, dumb advice about what you should do. Go to somebody that knows what they're doing. And Barbara McIntyre, I've had her on several radio and TV shows, and she's convinced me that she knows what she's doing. The other one is Vitas Hospice, Wiedemann Malik Attorneys, and Canadian Meds of Melbourne. So the other thing is that if you got a pencil and paper, you can get all this stuff I'm talking about, and John and I are talking about. This radio show will be posted tomorrow night on our website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. All our radio, all our television, all our articles in Ebony News and Hometown News. And by the way, I'm already getting phone calls from the article that came out in my column in Hometown News that hit the streets today. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but it's something that you surely want to read because it's already created a blast of requests for more help. So, I write what I think people need to know, and so far the editors of the papers, I guess they agree with me because they haven't stopped it, and they haven't changed a blessed thing I've sent to them. And quite the contrary, I've had 2 more papers ask for our columns. And to me, that says that we're doing the right thing in a community. But let's talk a little bit about more about housing for homeless and Daily Bread. And remember, folks, that what John and Rob are talking about are things that if we didn't have them, think about the magnitude of the problem that we would have if the housing for homeless didn't exist and Daily Bread didn't exist. You might say, yeah, downtown Murchison and people live in Melbourne. Yeah, I wouldn't have anybody coming down the street. It looks, and I don't want to see walking around in my country. But think about those people walking around my country could be you, because you never know when you're going to lose your job. You never know when you're going to get sick. You never know when something's going to happen that you might need help, like these 2 organizations headed by Rob and John can do to help people. So think about the bang for the buck. And I've already asked both of the 2 guys to tell you how, if you want to make a contribution to each one of these organizations, you can certainly do it, and I encourage it. We don't control all the funding. Everybody should have a piece of funding, and that's what we talked about: unity instead of divisiveness. Rob, you had something you wanted to talk about. Go ahead and you get that on here, and then John will pick in too.
Right. Joe, we know that one of the definitions of foolishness is trying to do the same thing and expecting a different result. And I think the agencies that deal with the homeless now are getting into that situation. We continue to have chronic homelessness. We continue to have the homeless situation. What are we going to do differently? And what we are going to be doing in this county next year to a large degree, and certainly this agency, is adopting a program called Housing First. The reason, Joe, we have the chronic homeless is because our agency and most housing agencies in the past have set certain barriers. You've got to have a little bit of income. We won't take drug users. We won't take alcoholics. We won't take people with mental situation. From the middle of next year, all our 100 properties we are going to open up with no barriers. The only barrier will be no sexual offenders. But apart from that, we will be taking everybody on. Now, it's easy to say that, but it's harder to do. But by the time we get there, the middle of next year, we will be able to provide wraparound services for every one of those clients we bring in. So they have a mental issue, we'll have a direct connection into people like the Brevard Health Alliance or Circles of Care. If they have an alcoholic problem, then we already have arrangements with AA. We will be able to provide them the kind of protection and support that up to now most of our agencies can only dream about. That is the way we're going to really address chronic homelessness once and for all, is to provide the kind of range of services that they need as soon as they get into our housing.
John?
In the southern part of the county, we've also adopted Housing First, and there are 3 agencies that have banded together. Each one of us takes a different piece of the need. For example, anyone that's chronically homeless, so as by Rob's definition, which we agree with, someone who's been homeless for at least a year and may have a disability, or someone that's had 4 different episodes of homelessness in a 3-year period of time is considered chronic. And so they are going to be taken care of by the Gap Ministry through Peace Lutheran Church. There's another group that is very difficult. These are the folks that have very little income or have high needs after they get in somewhere to make sure they can stay where we've gotten them into. So whether it's jobs or other support systems, they require a lot of help. And that's going to be handled, or is being handled, I should say, by the South Brevard Sharing Center. At Daily Bread, we are in the prevention area, so someone that's about to be foreclosed or evicted will come to us. We'll try to find a way to turn that situation around and keep them where they are. Or someone that's new to homelessness, we call it rapid rehousing, where we can turn it around and get them back into something else. It may need money for security deposits and maybe first month's rent, but they have the ability financially to take care of it once they are in, with limited amount of case management. And then those that are emergency, I mentioned the woman just before the break, these are the folks that need a place tonight because they're out as of today, wherever they are. It could be the foreclosure has finally occurred, the sheriff has come and locked the door behind them, or they whatever their other circumstances, the eviction takes hold today, they have to be out. It's an emergency, so they need help right now. So these are the areas that Daily Bread is on. Now, we share information with each other, so anyone that goes into any one of these three agencies can be referred, if necessary, to one of the other two. Daily Bread is the kind of appointed intake for all of us, but if they go to others first, that's fine. We refer to each other. And the way we do that is whoever takes them in does an interview, and it's pre-designed as to what information we receive, so it's complete by the individual or by the family. And then we will pass it on electronically to the other so that someone doesn't have to start all over and have wasted all that time when they first come in the door. So we do have a system in the South that's working. We have limited finances, but it is working, and a lot of it is being done around microloans in the case of Daily Bread, because many times people have the ability to pay for something, but they don't have the ability to pay the upfront costs of moving in. But after that, they might be able to pay $25 or $30 or $50 a month to repay a loan. So this is working quite well as well. In any case, we also work with all the other agencies in the county because we get people from all over the county. Rob's agency has been very good in helping us place people where they have to be in a certain geographic area that we don't have solutions for. And they do a great job.
But the key issue, Rob and John, is that information and education is so important. People say, oh, as a homeless person, we'll give them $20 and they'll find a place. That's the wrong thing to do. That's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Think about 1,000 people giving that $20 to your agency, Rob, to put the money together to help develop several places for people to be cared for. Right. And this is what we and I asked Rob and John during the break. Helping Seniors has an advocacy council, and in 2015 we worked 8 months to put together a survey and develop the survey and then tabulate the survey. And we submitted to the county commissioners a copy of a document that recommends development of an aging plan. In there, we didn't really have that much of an input from the housing or the homeless section or from the feeding people section. And I've asked John and Rob if they want to participate on the advocacy council for 2016 because we're going to do a second survey. And it was interesting, John and Rob, that two greatest needs of over 400 surveys that we got returned to us that we tabulated, 17% of the people felt that information and an equal percentage, 17% felt there were financial needs. So finances and information were the two of the greatest needs the seniors felt. Because if people don't know about Daily Bread, if they don't know what Housing for Homeless really does, Rob, and how all of us try to work together to solve the problem, they're just going to think it's just like another government program. You try to make a phone call, you spend 3 hours, you get dropped, and you go start the next day and start all over. That's not what happens in our organizations.
It's also best use of money. You hit it on the head earlier when you're talking about finances and information going together. I'll give you a quick example. The inclination for most churches to helping people is we'll put them up in a motel. If you put someone up in a motel and you look at a month's stay, you're looking at a minimum of $1,600 for the month. However, if you take a couple of days, put them there for that instead, and look for permanent housing, the cost might be $500 or $600 to get them in, and if they're able to pay rent of $400 or $500, $600 a month, you've got them taken care of and you saved $1,000. So it's also how smart you are in helping people. And given the fact that people are in trouble, a lot of it has to do they're not used to budgeting. I had a couple come in, and it turned out they were blowing money because they were going to these instant money stores. They're borrowing $500 every time they got into financial difficulty, and they had to repay it a month later with essentially 11% interest for the month. So obviously $500 and paying back $55 in interest as well, that eats into your budget. So a lot of this information and money go together, no doubt about it.
Rob, what else?
Absolutely. I think that the problem getting contributions for homeless people is people don't know, well, where's it going to go? Is it going on administration? How can you help these people? Well, let me be specific. Most of the people that arrive in our, we handle, as I said, last year over 700 people. Most of the people who arrive in our properties have nothing, nada. They have nothing. They have no furniture. They have no bedding. They have no materials. They don't even have photographs of when they were young. That's what poverty is. And so we have to go around getting donations. So any donations of furniture, material goods are always welcome. But we also need money. $100 a month would enable us to close the gap between what most of our clients can afford to pay and what the money we need just to break even on our properties. So somebody could actually sponsor a family for a year for around about $1,000. That is one way of money goes directly to people, and it doesn't go to administration. Our administration, I was just telling you before, Joe, is 5%. Never goes above that, and sometimes it's below that. So it doesn't go to the administration. We run a lean machine, I can promise you.
John?
We have a little different need at Daily Bread because we don't provide the shelter. On the other side of that coin, we help people obtain shelter. We work with a lot of other agencies and landlords in order to help people get into housing. And a typical methodology would include something like this. A man and a wife come to us. They can pay $500 a month in rent or $600. Between them, they've got disposable income, money after taxes of about $2,000 or even $1,000 a month. We can work with that. So we task them with doing two things. One, bring us a proof of income, which means the employer can verify these are the numbers for the income. And then bring us all the terms and conditions of an affordable rent so that we know we can match those things together and come up with a plan to help them. We then provide the seed money so they can get in and then continue to maintain what they're in. And that's as simple as it sounds, but it does work.
But let me ask you a question. It's the hard question. Both Rob and John, the question is to both of you. What about the often believed fact that if a person is in a situation such as we're discussing today, do they really want to make their finances known, and do they really want to get the help? And if not, how do we convince them to be part of a program to reestablish themselves? That's the real question.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We have always preached the gospel of self-help, of turn your life around. HUD supports us that with the 2-year program. We start off with the first two things we set up in our first month of our clients is goals. What are you going to do in 3 months? What are you going to do in 6 months? What are you going to do in a year? What are the goals? We also do, every client now gets budget training, how to manage the budget. The biggest issue that most of our clients have, the reason why most of them fail, 90% of them fail, Joe, is because they cannot manage a budget. Everybody comes onto our programs with the ability to pay a nominal rent. We never charge more than 30% of their income. Often it's much less than that. But they fail because they don't know how to manage a budget. So once you get discussion about the budget and the income, Joe, and you start talking about goals, people then begin to see a future. It's no good counseling with pleasantries and say, well, you've got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stiff upper lip and all that stuff. They're not going to listen to that. But when you talk to them, as our case managers do, about realities, tell me what you spend it on. Don't spend it on Starbucks. Spend it on real food.
But, I bet a lot of people listening to us talk today don't realize that when we talk about money, when you guys get the money, you just don't dole it out in $100 bills to these people.
Absolutely not.
Tell our listeners, John, what you do, and then Rob, you tell. Okay. What do you do with that money?
Let me give you a quick idea. Let's say it's money that's earmarked for housing, because that's the topic right now. By issuing microloans to people, we're not giving the money away, first of all. And that money becomes reusable as people repay those loans. Now, we'll never get 100% back. But if we get 60 or 70% back, that's 60 or 70% we have in addition to helping new families and new people get into housing. So it's somewhat self-repeating in a way. But the other part of it is when we get a gift for helping folks, the money doesn't go into a motel. It instead, we might take the half of what otherwise would be spent on a motel and get them into permanent housing, which is a solution, and it's a final destination rather than a Band-Aid or transitional. And that's our goal.
Rob?
Yeah, we have a permanent shopping list of things that we know clients need. And that stays up, and once we get some money, then it allows us to purchase maybe the top of the list, and then we gradually work. But there's always a waiting list. There's always things that people need that we use any money that we get for. It really is. There's always somebody there who wants some help somewhere.
But don't the church thrift shops help both of you with donations of clothing to the people in need? Or have I touched an area that shouldn't be touched?
Absolutely. We get help all the time. We manage to keep all our veterans warm in the winter through the Space Ghost Ladies Quilters Guild. They provide quilts, beautiful handmade quilts.
Yes.
Every year. I just picked up my annual supply this week, actually. Beautiful set of quilt. So we get that kind of contribution. We also get tremendous support, as John has said, from other agencies. Every Thanksgiving and every Christmas, we provide turkey dinners, not just the turkey, but all the fixings for every one of our clients, thanks to Central Brevard Sharing Centre and in the South Brevard Sharing Centre. No questions asked. Everybody gets a turkey.
John, you want to add anything?
We're so fortunate because you asked about thrift shops. There are a number of thrift shops that give us those things that might have a stain or something, but functionally they're fine. So particularly this time of year, we're going to hit cold weather. And with what's going on so far, when it comes, it's going to be real cold based on this heat we're seeing. But that does help us greatly because 54% of the people that come to us this year are homeless, and so half of those are living outside, and so they need warm clothing and they need changes of clothing when they come in and get showers, and so we always are looking for clothing. Thrift shops are a big beneficiary, and so are the churches. They do clothing drives. One church came up with an idea this year of they found a source of these wool-type hoodie jackets, extremely warm, very lightweight, and they purchased several hundred of them. And so this year we're not going to have a major problem, we think, as far as warm jackets are concerned. And there's always something like this going on. A few years ago, a young man was doing a Boy Scout he was going after his Eagle Scout, and he needed a project. He did a clothing drive, a coat drive specifically, and we had more coats. We had some left over going into the next season. So we're blessed in that regard. But that doesn't mean we don't need it. We do. We need, at Daily Bread, we need food, we need clothing, and we need money.
Okay. Rob, first, if people want to make a donation to Housing for Homeless, how do they do it?
If you want to learn more about us and you want to make a donation, go to our website, housingforhomeless.org, or we're on Facebook as Housing for Homeless. You can donate on either of those.
Okay, John?
DailyBreadInc.org. You can also donate there, or you can pick up the phone and call us, 321-723-1060, extension 12 or 18 or 25. And or send us a check, 815 East Fee Avenue, Melbourne 32901.
And it's important, John and Rob, that people realize, we never know, folks, what kind of calls we're going to get at a holiday season. And for some reason, the calls for help have been a little slower this year than they generally are, and I don't know why that is. But we're getting a signal. We're almost out of time. So I want to thank you, Rob, and you, John, Daily Bread, and Housing for Homeless for being on the show today. And I hope you, our listeners, have learned a little something about two wonderful organizations that help a lot of people, and they're going to be working with us in this 2016 to help identify more needs so that we can all sort of unite and work to solve some of our problems. I'll be with you next week. Have a great weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you, Joe, for having us.
Thank you, Joe.